Okay, let's try this again. Communicating, conversing, communicating as complaining. Now, communicate and converse to complain and complain whilst communicating and conversing. But there's often situations where you might need to voice a concern or communicate something. I'm going to give examples so that it makes a little bit more sense and it doesn't sound like a bunch of words, a bunch of definitions and meanings and stuff. Okay, and again, this is just example. In order to get, let's say, an answer or clarity or a result, one would have to communicate, no? One would have to converse. And then if something persists, then one would have to communicate and again. The interpretation, case in point, let's use work. You know, some of you may be able to relate to environment situation. Let's use work. You're employed in a secular job, so let's use work. Okay. Let's say your coworker or your team member is responsible for a certain aspect of a project and they communicate to you, okay, team member, we will have this done, we will get to this, you know, this is missing, that is missing, taking care of it, and we will have this for you. We'll have this done in a couple days, in a week. And you go, okay, because that's what they communicated with you. And then let's say that you gave even a little, like your coworker may have some other stuff, trying to be gracious, and you're like, oh, okay. And you give them maybe an extra 1 or 2 days other than what they said to you. So when you go to that coworker or that team member and you communicate and you converse about that thing, ask the question, is that complaining? Let's say you go to them and you say, hey, team member, I recall that you said, you know, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to follow up with that. I just wanted to see where we are with that. And let's say that this go around, it's the bait and switch. Let's say this go around, you talk to them and now they're playing brand new, or they're saying, oh, there was a miscommunication, or you know, actually this person is supposed to be responsible for that, and I'll follow up with them and that and thus and down. Okay, now let's say that you tell this coworker, this team member, okay, so switched it up on you. You gave them a leeway, just, you know, considering, you know, people are human and other things. You gave them the leeway, and then you approach to converse and communicate about it. And then when you communicated about it, they switched it up and you gave more leeway. You gave more leeway when even though they switched it up, and you're like, okay, that's not what the team member said to me before. So now they're saying something different. Okay, fair enough. They're saying that they're going to communicate now that this is somebody else's thing, and they're going to communicate with them and they're going to follow up. Okay, and you give them more leeway, and still nothing, nobody contacts you, nobody updates you. And so once again, you attempt, okay, you give a little leeway, again, you go back to the person, or you go to maybe the person that they said is going to be the person responsible for getting that. And now that person is saying, oh, like basically taking you through, again, musical, bait and switch. I call it the musical chairs. Keep away. Okay. It started out that they were going to be getting back with you, and they were going to be doing this and that, and they were going to have that done in a couple of days, and then switch to it's someone else, and then you go to that someone else is, I don't know, I have to go to this one. So the point that I'm trying to make in this scenario is I'm going to pour water over the notion that the person who's communicating about that is complaining. That's gaslighting. That's perception, and it's gaslighting, because how else, once again, you have to communicate. How do you find out? And if, whilst in these communications, if you are then given the runaround or the bait and switch, and initially, they're saying this and that, and then they're saying something else, and then people playing, just switching it up. We care, and then now it's indifference. The person communicating is not complaining. Now, something could elevate or escalate, but complaining shouldn't even really be looked upon necessarily as bad if it's done in an honorable manner. If you're attempting to communicate, again, if you're communicating clearly and they're communicating with you, and then to imply or to backlash or to maybe have some kind of attitude is like complaining. No, that's called communication. Or the backlash is like, oh, my coworker's entitled. No, the communication was that you communicated A, B, and C. And there was no follow through. So if someone wants somebody to have confidence, why should there be any confidence with this particular coworker or this particular team member when their follow through isn't there? And when you're being taken in circles for basic things. Because listen, some stuff can be potentially simple resolves if people want it to be simple resolves. Sometimes people don't want it to be a simple resolve. Sometimes people are paid to make sure that it's not a simple resolve. And that's abuse. If it hasn't been said any other platform anywhere else, it's going to be said here. If ever any of those types of things are going on in any environment, work environment, whatever, and if that's the case, and it is cruelty. To folks, remember how I said that a lot of what goes on around us is to keep us in irritation, sometimes very subtly. It's the little things. And then they'll gaslight, and I'm not saying this about those that this doesn't apply to. But then they'll gaslight when you try to voice communication. They'll try to shame you. And once again, that's abuse. That's a dysfunctional relationship. You can't voice, you can't show up and say something when somebody follow through, because then it's interpreted as an attack. Doesn't that sound like an abusive relationship? And I've always, like I said, when vulnerable populations are treated, you know, the unspoken undercurrent of being treated like that. Shut up. It's an unspoken social, you know, shut up. You could be on the street. You don't have anything. Shut up. And again, and what if there's other concerns that arise? I think I'm gonna end this video and do another video on a bridging topic of environment is everything. And it is. And it absolutely is. And some of us are more sensitive, and it's neither bad, right, or wrong. But it is. Environment is everything. And if someone, especially somebody of a population, disabled population that's been abused, traumatized, and whatever, that has developed all sorts of phobias and anxieties due to the abuse, due to their nervous system may be shot. So just having no regard, a person should be able to communicate those valid concerns. Is there another way? And is that honorably and seriously being considered? Communicating and conversing is not the same. But attacking people to communicate or implying a certain thing is that undercurrent. It's abuse. As if they don't have a right to voice their needs and their concerns. That's disrespectful. And listen, I get it, but all things need to be with a balance and grain of salt. There's a difference between trying to like just have a humble and grateful attitude and try not to rock the boat in feathers, and you want to show, that's a good attitude to have, but that's to not be misconstrued or bleed into it when there's legitimate things occurring that shouldn't stop the person because of their gratitude. If somebody is toying with them, if somebody is talking in circles, if they're doing the bait and switch, if something is happening, that person should be able to safely communicate it without any weird bureaucracy, passive-aggressive backlash. I was saying, sometimes it's, sorry, excuse me, my throat chakra is opening up. Sometimes it's all there, because they say how you begin a thing, how a thing start often gives you the tempo of what something is. If something starts on deception, if something starts on confusion and chaos and miscommunication and kind of a lot of, that's already setting the tempo of what you're possibly be dealing with. target for any agenda, my son, is a sickness. And people trying to play God with that, that's also a sickness. Communication, conversing. Communication. Okay. So I'm going to, let me send a message so I can call him back. I'm not going to be long here. I just want to share that as a general. My life lessons is lessons that I share. I'm just starting to share it from a more general space, and it's a reason that I'm doing that in this manner, because again, for the sake of the innocent, to protect the innocent, and for those who, you know what I'm saying, they may not have any harm or ill will and intent. And so I'm definitely not trying to do anything to hurt folks that, you know, they're legit, sincere folk. So I'll have to share my life from this kind of general perspective. But these are lessons that I'm swallowing. But I'm putting this out there because, again, when we come from abuse culture and everybody's got their perceptions of how things are to be done, and if you're in place and you're in need and you're getting a service, sometimes there's an undercurrent of that. But do know that communicating, conversing, you have time for things, but you have to determine that. How else do you find out what you need to find out? When you give space, and then you're just giving space and you're giving space, and see, you have to determine that. And you should feel if there's a fear to communicate, to me that's concerning. If there's a fear that I'm going to get attacked, I'm going to be misjudged, they're going to withhold, that's an undercurrent of something that's maybe, because if you can communicate healthily, please catch my drift, because you have people who can communicate healthily, and then you have some who can't. In their neck, they're raising their voice, they're popping gum, they're cussing at folks. So, you know, we have to take that with a grain of salt, albeit if you communicate in a healthy and honorable and a respectful manner, if you know how, you shouldn't be feeling afraid to do it. Especially if there is things you're needing answers for, or things that's needing attention. Nobody's perfect. I can almost hear folks out there saying nothing and nobody's perfect. 100, 1,000. But all I can say is, when you've been a person that has been toyed with a lot and gaslit, and when folks can't seem to resolve simple things, that starts to get concerning. Or just when communication is designed to be obscure and ambiguous, and then it's only until you're in. It wouldn't be altogether illogical for a person to feel like they were trapped. That was entrapment. Now, this may be non-related what I'm about to say, for some of you, but for some of you, some of it may bleed all together. This goes back to the topics about how we've been talking about targeted individuals and some of the street theater and some of the antics and these agendas that's simply designed to annoy and irritate and get a rise out of you. And it's very sad, it's very immature, it's petty, and it's cruel. When that's the case, it's cruel. There's no regard. It's the objectification of you and your children. Like you all aren't real people with real feelings and emotions. Because let the record show, let me set the record straight, it's not okay under any circumstances for people to be toying with you or your children unnecessarily. It's one thing to be confused. It's one thing to have a misunderstanding. It's another thing to intentionally do things and it's also another thing altogether to just neglect or not consider. Environment is everything. It's easy for me, it's easy for someone else to say, hey, and to a degree, there's truth. But if they're not the ones getting sick, if they're not the ones that's watching some kind of a decay happen, it's easy for people to do that. It's like, no. Because if you're deteriorating, then your whole goal is not even in motion. Environment is important. Traumas, phobias, and again, maybe this is something that will end up down the road somewhere out there in the cosmos, I don't know, being looked at, because all of that determines how somebody recovers, how somebody heals, how somebody rebuilds. All of those things matter. It matters. The person can't wash their freaking clothes. If the person can't, I'm only saying all these things because a lot of stuff folks are just taken for granted because it's not something that they have had to personally address or deal with. Some people have claustrophobia and develop phobias, and you put them in a small and restrained space, you're not about to help that person. You're about to trigger and activate them. They ain't about to recover. They ain't about to do none of that. That ain't about to happen. If that person is used to having a table and a chair to sit on to do things, and they don't have a table. I mean, it sounds silly. It sounds stupid. And I know that a lot of folks would just go, well, they wouldn't have that under the freeway. Yeah, thank you, abuse culture leadership. And again, case by case, brain assault, all of those things. When folks have already had their trust violated and have had people give them the runaround, debate and switch, gaslight, people should not feel afraid to communicate their needs under any circumstance. And some of us do have tact and timing. That's why I added that to this video. the process. Because it's one thing to jump the gun and, you go on somewhere day one and you're, flapping about. It's like, no. Okay, you see what I'm saying? That's a little hasty. But if a person has tempered themselves and said, okay, give some space, get settled in the job, in the friendship, in the whatever it is, give some space, decompress. In some cases, how are you going to decompress when the environment is acting? You feel like you can't breathe. You're sitting on a bed and your back is slunched because folks aren't. And again, all I'm simply saying, environment is everything. And when there are people out there that are participating and intentionally, to those people collective, those are some sick individuals. And you might as well just write them off as that. Okay? The ones that are intentionally doing things. Especially if they're with these weird groups and cults and they sitting up there smiling at you, like, just write it off. Because people who feel like they're God and that they're the ones that's assigned to so-called teach you something by exhibiting some kind of control and limits and cruelty to you. When that's the case, write those people off, okay? They're sick. There's nothing you can do about that. There's no amount of eloquence. There's no amount of conversation. There's no amount of intelligence. There's no amount of data and information that you're going to provide to these people to cause them to see their behavior as cruel, insensitive, and inhumane and out of place and disrespectful. The only thing that you can do in these incidences is just simply have it duly noted and do what you can do to remove yourself from situations as quickly as you can. In other situations, where this is just a matter of blindness, ignorance, whatever. Again, it's still really not much you can do. Duly noted. Maybe have a different stance with these individuals if they didn't, really mean any harm. Like, okay, they're not intentionally a part of some kind of a circus shit show. Let's torture this person and make everything as difficult as we possibly can. Shit, that nigga. Oh, help me. Oh, gosh. Again, just to keep you irritated. I don't have respect. I'm never going to again. I'm not. I don't have respect for nothing or no one that actually vibes feeling okay to toy with lives, even if it is passive aggressive. It's inhumane. I feel they deserve to. I want those people to stay as far away from me as they can. I feel like they don't deserve. I want to be able to watch them. They don't deserve, and you don't deserve my audience then. Because what is this, and who is this that people feel like they have the right, based on their mind, That's disrespectful. So we're learning a lot, collective, about life and relationships and about communications. Since we came up under abuse, that's kind of what was deeply ingrained. And we're going to continue to work on our subconscious and our energy and the programmings and all those things that resonates with it, that allows it. You see what I'm saying? The program's running on that you don't have a right because you're in some kind of vulnerable position. This is why people keep trying to get you in a vulnerable position, to try to make you feel like you don't have a right to be respected. And some of these folks, not all of them, but some of them, is one paycheck away from being in your same position. One check. For some of them, not even a whole check. We all deserve honor and respect no matter what our situations are. We all should feel comfortable with healthy communication in a respectful, honoring manner. We should all feel safe to do that. We should all feel heard, understood. Our financial bracket shouldn't determine if we should have a right to communicate. I know entitled people in this world, but once again, the fact that we deal with entitled energies that's stomping around, rolling their eyes, rolling their neck, popping gum, talking trash, just because we have that side of it where they're entitled for, stuff, and they're disrespectful, and they're, just demanding and just annoying. Just because we have that doesn't mean that we should be able to get off the hook when we are lacking and dropping the ball, and when someone is sincerely and honestly and respectfully communicating about it. This is why some of us don't want romantic relationships no more. This is why some of us won't deal with family no more. Because again, and listen, if we don't give off that vibe to people when we are in positions of giving and helping and supporting, whether that's emotionally, mentally, physically, verbally, financially, in any way, if we're not giving that off to folks, then we have every sovereign right to not allow it. If that's not what we reflect to people when we're in a better position, whether that's emotional state, mental state, spiritual state, financial state. I'm going to end this. I've got 42 minutes in. I'm going to come back. Got some calls to make. I think I'm getting some responses, but we're going to talk about environment, and then we're going to do some breath work. Because again, at the end of the day, all this stuff that some of us are experiencing is designed to entrap us. It's designed to tick us off. It's petty. It's petty. And in some cases, it's just ignorance and a lack of sensitivity and knowledge, and and a lack of cases. Okay, some of us is a mixed bag. I believe, in my experiencing, I believe it is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag of where this is actually intentional. This is a secret plot. It's intentional. And that's going to end up being a problem. But I also believe that for some that's not involved, is just their state of mind, their beliefs, their whatever. Okay, I mean, it's life. But at the end of the day, I should feel like I can speak up about the needs for me and my son. Any backlash. And that they should be heard and honored, and that there should be a level of reciprocal expectation and accountability.